I can tell this project is pissing me off now. My general malaise of putting my clothes on and coming down here to actually do stuff. Yeah, it's hopefully today and tomorrow and the car will be done, but there's still quite a lot to do. I've nearly run out of steel, so I've sent my neighbour, who's a very helpful chap, he's gone to go and steal me from some steel from his work. Steal some steel. Right, less chattering. I'm gonna have a bit of a tidy up because I just wandered off last time, and then I'll put the radio on, put TalkSport on, listen to some football whilst chopping and grinding. It's a bit better. Can actually wander around without tripping over things. That wasn't planned. I did just trip a little bit, but it's better than it was, and that's enough for me. Last time, I can't even remember whether that's this is a new video or it's a continuation of another video, but either way, I'm working in this here area. I did some exploratory cuts and I found some more rust up in here. I have not had to take the clutch pedal out. I've just taken the glove box bracket out and disconnected the clutch from the clutch master cylinder, and then I can tie the insulation up and out of the way, get in there with the wire brush, see what's going on, draw with a pen what I need to cut, get in there with the grinder, chop it out, start making patches. This is quite spooky because literally last night or the night before, another gentleman, and I will throw up a link to his videos, was documenting his Vitesse restoration, and he's got almost identical patterns of rust. So it's quite funny. I could literally just copy his pad shapes pretty much. Yeah, sorry, can't remember your name off the top of my head, but quite funny how identical the two cars have rusted. Just used the grinder or cutting disc to cut a slot all the way along this bitumen-y sounding insulation pad, and then used the paint scraper to chip off these bits so that when I weld back in, that isn't catching fire running down into it, and as much as can be saved is saved, and it just looks like a clean line, so you would struggle to distinguish it from the original unless you were a super spotter. Totally pointless because it's all under the cabin carpet anyway. Up in here you can see the backside of my welded repair to the bulkhead. All of that is just surface rust, but we do have a hole there. So I'm going to get in with the grinder, which is going to be not so much fun because I'll just be putting sparks in my face, and I'm just going to be quite merciless and cut out everywhere there's rust until we have an area that's worth welding back onto. I don't know how long that's taken, but it feels like an absolute age. But we now have no more rust. We also have no more floor, but that was always going to be the likelihood, really. What have I done? I've chopped out everything in that area that was rotten, and then I've cleaned off all that metal. So that I'm really happy with, actually, because I was worried there might be a big hole through the bulkhead, and there isn't. So under here you are looking at something that most SD1s don't have. This, of course, is a diesel SD1, and the diesels and 2 litres obviously sound a lot more clattery because the 2 litre is a 4-pot petrol, and to the ears of the luxury car market back in the 80s, they wanted nice quiet cars. So the diesel and the 2 litres have this additional sound insulation pad which goes up on the underside of the car over the transmission tunnel and back down again, and is held by a series of little brackets, and these are the captive screws just holding the brackets to the underside of the chassis rails. So that's what that is, and there's another bracket up there you can just see. So it's annoying because in order to treat the bottom of side of the car where I've welded the new panel in, I'll have to take the gearbox out and take that insulation pad out again, but that can wait for another time. What I'm going to do now is chop up and make some patches. That's one big patch that is basically replacing the floor pan, and we'll pick up on the top of that flange for the chassis rail. Back here, just 2 easy square patches. then a bigger one here. This outrigger thing I can now weld back onto my new inner sill, which I put in a while ago to keep that strong. It has got a bit frilly there, but I'll just cut that corner out, weld a bit in as I go. And then this area is where the drain plug thing would be for the paint shop. So once this forward end patch is in, I'll trim. So I'll put this in as a square patch, and then I'll trim the hole into it afterwards. And then I'll repair this lip, repair that bit, and then we're done on this side. Right. I have been prepping this area. Loads of Hydrate 80, that's started to go off now. I've made a couple of patches, small patches for that side. That one's got a plug weld hole ready to go in that bit. That one is to go up there. I'll zinc paint those, weld through primer. I've cut a piece to go in here, and I've started making cardboard templates for the other bits, but I'm still waiting for steel to turn up. So I'll probably zap these bits in. I've also chopped a little piece to go in there. And yeah, I'll zap them in, clean them off, and then probably gonna have some lunch. Okay, what have we got? We have got a burp, then a patch over there, patch there. You can tell the welding quality has dropped because I'm just not enjoying myself so much doing this. Bitting over there, this bit here. So I'll grind all that down, throw a bit of zinc on it or bond a primer, then go in for my tea. Ground down, bond a primer, doesn't look so bad. I've also bond a primered in those top parts of those rails. Back from lunchtime, and thanks to my wonderful neighbour Jim, I have a huge sheet of steel from which I've cut my first offerings of a patch for the left side of the footwell. I am going to have to approach this as tack and wallop, because there's no way that I can fabricate that as a perfect shape to just drop in there. So I've made it oversized this end. I'm going to start with the bit that's farthest away and weld that in, and then work my way towards the rear, and probably trim bits off, like actually fold the tail end up, trim it off so that it ends up looking quite neat. So what I'm going to do is put some plug weld holes. Actually no, I won't, because I won't be able to grind those down, will I? I won't have enough access to make them look pretty, so I'll probably just stitch it across the top. I will put a plug weld hole in here to pick up on that return for the chassis rail. Everything else is going to be seam welded. Just been round with the sanding disc, cleaned back to bare metal, get the Hydrate 80 off. It's super difficult to clear the metal in that, or clear the paint off in that far left corner. So there might be some farty poopy welds. So what I'll probably do is weld from the clean bits into the dirty bits and hope that it burns it off, and then I'll attack it with the wire drill. That's the patch. I've just degreased the underside, painted weld through primer on it, because at least that'll stop flash rusting between when I finish the top side and when I get around to doing the underside. But now I'm going to offer that up, tack it where it touches, and then beat the hell out of it while I weld it, and hopefully we'll end up with something quite sympathetic looking. I've just rolled that lip on the left as well, so that it butts up a bit easier against there. So you get what I'm going to attempt to do, and I shall report back momentarily with what it looks like. I've got 3 tacks in there, and it's covering the hole at least. So I'm going to go find my slightly more forgiving hammer and start beating the belly into it, and hopefully it will all come good and look pretty at the end. Fingers crossed. I reckon I'm about halfway through. I've done some of the harder bits. I've hammered and dressed that return onto the bulkhead. It butts up really nicely. Access is absolutely appalling. It's very difficult to get in there and see what you're doing and get the gun in the right place. And then because of the angle in my head, just keep breathing into my little mask. These masks are excellent, but they do not have as much air circulation around them, and I'm huffing and puffing and keep blowing hot like breath onto the window, and it condenses and then I steam up. But it should seal around the eyes, and it does. Maybe I'm just not adjusting it properly, or I'm a particularly humid person, who knows. But I'm going to carry on walloping and welding. It did blow a couple of little holes on the left side, but by the time it's got seam sealer ground down and then later on epoxied both sides, it will be absolutely fine. So just going to carry on. Well, I'd be lying if I said it was my finest work. It isn't, but it fits. It's the right shape-ish, and it's in there. So it'll have to be dressed, obviously. But when you consider all of that gets covered in seam sealer pretty much all the way across the bottom of the bulkhead, it comes down there, down this diagonal stripe there, where there's that join in that panel. Then I'll put a sweep of seam sealer along there, and then it has sound insulation, sound deadening pads, then the carpet. So you're never going to see it. It's a secret for you and I to see, and now to be ground down and hidden forever. In fact, I won't grind it down yet. I'll put the other one patch in here, make and weld that in. That should be easier. It's just a big flat panel. I have taken reference measurements of where the hole is going to be for the drain pluggy thing. One of them, oh, that's clever, isn't it? I've painted over them. Yeah, 4 inches from that line there along that line, 5 inches from that line there. So I know roughly where it goes. I'm now going to stitch weld this back to the inner sill, make a plate, weld it in, cut a hole, carry on. Patch number 4, is it? Let's go in there. I've marked out where I've got to drill plug weld holes so that it can be put back onto the chassis rails. This edge to my new inner sill, I'm just going to stitch it. It would ordinarily have had a 90-degree return, but I've already made that underneath the car. So it's just going to be sat on top and then stitch welded across there. Then I can... I'm in two minds about whether to bother fitting the drain plug holes in. It seems really stupid if you're only ever going to see it when you jack the car up. There aren't any in that side. I always meant to go back and put them in, but I'm starting to think it's just overkill. And in point of fact, I will probably not bother. It's basically across the cabin floor. There would have been a series of these big round holes, I think 7 in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 3 in the boot. Basically, when the cars were mounted on the conveyor belts and would go through the factory, they would be dipped into these massive tanks of fluid, like all of the treatments, and then anti-rust corrosion stuff, and then those would have allowed the water or the fluids to drain out of the body shells quickly. You don't need them, they're just a detail thing. I've retained the 3 in the boot, but so far I'm missing 3 out of the cabin. Can I be bothered? I think I'll weld that plate in. I won't put the hole in it yet, and I'll just see how I'm doing for time before I go to the body shop. I also don't really have anything that's good for cutting circular holes like that. Yeah, I'll just have to have a think really. Okay, that is all cleaned off and zinc painted. That's my patch, done the same. Got my holes in there. That will sit like so, get pushed down and welded in. Okay, got the first few tacks in there, bit of a belly in this section, so I'll continue to massage that into the floor with my various hammers. That one probably because it's in my hand already. I won't do it because it's incredibly noisy. Echoes off in here. Each of these looks like it's going to line up with those chassis rails, which is good. And I think I'm nearing the end of what I'm going to achieve today because I'm knackered, but I should at least get that in ground down, painted. Cannot tell you how happy I am that that is now done. It ain't the best work, but it's in there. Just for the hell of it, I'm now going to clean it off and paint it with red oxide. Ultimately, the whole of this cabin floor is going to be done in epoxy, because if water ever does collect in this car again, and it probably will because it is a Rover, it will sit on top of the epoxy rather than eating its way through the floor pan. So wire brush, degreaser, red oxide. Here we go. It looks so much better when it's all painted one colour. So that's been a productive Saturday. I think I started about 11 o'clock and it's now about 4:30, 4:45. I had a little time off for lunch, but another section done. Running out of sections to do. I have still got to repair that bit, get this door off, repair that bit, tidy up the floor that side where I never quite finished it, and grind down a lot of welds. But after that, it's fit the new tailgate, the new bonnet, 4 new doors, load it on the trailer, get it up to the body shop.